overflowing with so many other ways to whisper, shout, and sigh those romantic feelings.
Absolutely.
It's truly fascinating how we've built this rich vocabulary beyond just those three little words, you know?
It really is. And in this deep dive, we're really going to unpack that linguistic richness. We'll be exploring the incredible variety of English idioms and phrases we use when we're talking about all things love and romance.
Exactly. And we've gathered a brilliant set of resources to guide us. Think articles from places like thesaurus.com and Surprise Gift Blog giving us definitions, context,
Right.
practical language insights from Espresso English in your dictionary, even a peek into how language learning podcasts like, those on Apple Podcasts and YouTube tackle this topic.
Wow.
Plus some interesting ideas on learning through role-playing from Sinanako. It's a real linguistic feast.
Yeah, it's quite a mix. And from all this, we're aiming to dissect everything from those charming sort of age-old idioms to the more direct ways we declare our affection.
Okay.
The phrasal verbs that capture the ebb and flow of relationships, and a whole spectrum of romantic vocabulary. We'll even touch upon how stepping into different roles can help solidify these expressions.
So our mission for you today is clear. We want to equip you with a more vibrant and, nuanced understanding of how to express romantic feelings in English. And just as importantly, how to interpret them when you hear them. We'll also be looking at some of the cultural undercurrents and how you can actually, weave these expressions into your own interactions.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's dive right in with those wonderful love idioms.
A perfect starting point. The English language is just brimming with these colorful expressions that really get to the heart of what it means to be in love. Take head over heels, for example.
Oh, that's such a great one. It really paints a picture of losing your balance, like in a good way. What's the story behind it?
Well, interestingly, the research from thesaurus.com shows that it actually started as heels over head.
Really? The other way around?
Yeah, back in the 17th century.
Yeah.
And it described a literal fall or somersault.
Huh.
Over time, the meaning did a complete flip, coming to describe that feeling of being so thoroughly in love
Right.
that it feels like your whole world has been turned upside down by this person. That sense of losing your normal equilibrium,
Yeah, like being swept off your feet. That makes so much sense. Now, what about apple of one's eye? That sounds so tender.
It does, and its origin is quite literal, actually. Historically, the apple of the eye simply referred to the pupil.
Just the pupil.
Yeah. Ancient cultures apparently believed the pupil was a hard, round object like a tiny apple.
Wow. Okay.
By the early 1800s, the phrase evolved to signify someone incredibly precious to you. Maybe because, the pupil is so central to our vision, and we naturally gaze fondly upon those we cherish.
Ah, that's a really lovely connection. Now, here's one you hear everywhere. Love you to the moon and back. It's so wonderfully dramatic.
It's certainly hyperbolic, as thesaurus.com points out.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes a love that stretches as far as the imagination can possibly go.
Right.
The source even speculates that its surge in popularity might be connected to the 1960s space race,
Interesting.
highlighting that incredible distance.
Yeah.
But regardless of the exact origin, the message is clear.
Yeah.
It signifies a truly enormous, seemingly limitless amount of love.
Okay, moving on to something maybe a touch less intense. Puppy love.
We've all been there, right?
Exactly. Thesaurus.com so accurately describes puppy love as that often intense but temporary infatuation we typically associate with young people. Teenagers, mostly.
Temporary is the key word there.
Right, that sense of transience, those early crushes that can blossom quickly but might also fade just as fast.
Think back to your own teenage years, or you see young couples. It often involves intense but fleeting emotions, maybe based more on idealization than deep understanding. There's a certain innocence to it.
Definitely. And then we have lovebirds. That one always brings a smile to my face.
It's another charming animal-inspired idiom, isn't it? Used to describe couples who are very openly affectionate with each other.
Right, very visible.
Yeah. It comes from the behavior of actual lovebirds, the agapornis parrots, which are known for forming very strong lifelong bonds.
Ah, okay. So if you see a couple constantly holding hands and whispering sweet nothings, lovebirds might just fit. Got it.
Pretty much.
What about when you're completely struck by someone's beauty or just their presence?
Then you might say they take your breath away.
Okay.
This idiom, as thesaurus.com notes, isn't actually limited to love. It can describe any powerful emotion of astonishment or awe.
Oh, right.
It refers to that almost involuntary physical reaction, like momentarily holding your breath when you experience something truly striking.
Right, like a breathtaking sunset or, yeah, catching sight of someone you have a massive crush on walking into the room.
Exactly.
And speaking of those fluttery feelings, what about butterflies in one's stomach?
That's such a classic. It perfectly captures that nervous, fluttery sensation you might feel around someone you're attracted to.
Hmm.
Or even when you're facing something nerve-wracking, like a big presentation. Thesaurus.com suggests really imagining actual butterflies fluttering around in there. It's a wonderfully vivid image for that mix of excitement and anxiety.
It really is. Okay, let's get a little more direct. What does it really mean to have the hots for someone?
Ah, right. That idiom, as thesaurus.com explains, clearly indicates sexual attraction.
Okay, no ambiguity there.
Not really.
Oh, yeah.
The word hot is used figuratively to describe someone you find physically very appealing. And to have the hots for someone means you experience that intense, heated feeling of desire. It's definitely stronger than just finding someone generally attractive.
Makes sense. Now, what about past loves? We often hear the term old flame, right?
Precisely. An old flame refers to someone you were romantically involved with or had strong feelings for in the past. But those feelings aren't active anymore.
Gotcha.
The word flame really evokes that idea of a once intense heat of passion that's now, well, just an old flame.
And what if those feelings haven't completely died out? What if there's still a little spark?
Then you might be described as carrying a torch for someone. This idiom describes still harboring romantic feelings, maybe unrequited feelings, even after a relationship has ended,
Right.
sometimes even a long time ago. Thesaurus.com interestingly connects this to torch song.
Torch songs.
Yeah, those popular, very emotional, often sad songs from the early 20th century about unrequited love.
Hmm.
The themes really illuminate that lingering, sometimes painful nature of carrying a torch.
Oh, that's a really poignant connection. Now let's move towards more permanent commitments. We have tie the knot and get hitched.
Both very common, informal ways to talk about getting married. Thesaurus.com points out that tie the knot goes way back to the 17th century and might have roots in the Celtic practice of hand fasting.
Hand fasting.
Yeah, where the couple's hands were symbolically bound together with a cord or ribbon.
Oh, okay.
And get hitched is a bit more straightforward. To hitch means to fasten or connect, so it represents the couple binding themselves together in marriage.
Beautiful imagery in both. And what about those sweet, often slightly silly things that lovers whisper to each other?
That's often referred to as whispering sweet nothings.
Right.
Thesaurus.com explains this phrase describes those endearing, often nonsensical, but very affectionate things people in love say. It's really about the loving intention and the intimacy, not necessarily the literal meaning of the words, sometimes called sweet talk too.
So it's less about the content and more about the feeling behind it.
Got it. And when a couple is particularly demonstrative with their affection, we might call them
Lovey-dovey.
lovey-dovey. Yeah. The exact origins are a little uncertain, according to thesaurus.com, but the most likely explanation is just the pleasing rhyme between lovey and dove.
Makes sense.
And the dove, of course, being a long-standing symbol of love. Another possibility is it refers to how affectionate doves often are with their mates. Either way, it definitely conjures up an image of a very cuddly, affectionate pair.
It definitely does. Now, better half, that's a really common way to refer to a spouse or partner.
It is. TheForce.com highlights that this expression reflects the traditional idea that the person you love completes you,
Right.
that you are somehow half a person without them. It's almost exclusively used for a spouse or romantic partner.
And then, of course, we have those three little words. Everyone immediately knows what that means.
Absolutely. Those three little words, or sometimes those three small words, it's a very specific, universally understood reference to I love you. Both Thesaurus.com and another source we looked at mention that.
Yep, unmistakable. Now, here's a more contemporary one that gained popularity from a certain TV show. My person.
Yes, my person. Thesaurus.com points out that it really took off thanks to Grey's Anatomy.
Right.
It describes someone who's a very close, deeply connected partner, though not necessarily a spouse in the traditional sense.
Okay.
It speaks to a kind of chosen family, a profound soul connection that isn't always tied to legal definitions like marriage. It reflects a more modern understanding of partnership.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, for our collection of love idioms, we have ride or die. That sounds pretty intense.
It is. Thesaurus.com defines ride or die as a colloquial expression indicating extreme loyalty and unwavering support.
Okay.
The kind of fierce devotion you might expect
Yeah.
between two people deeply in love and completely dedicated to each other. It originated in hip-hop culture, famously referencing Bonnie and Clyde.
Ah, the outlaw
Yeah,
connection.
yeah, exactly. And interestingly, it can function as both a noun, she's my ride or die, and a verb, we ride or die for each other.
Wow, what a fantastic overview of love idioms. Okay, so we have all these colorful and nuanced ways to talk about being in love, but what about the actual act of telling someone you love them for the first time? That can be pretty nerve-wracking.
It absolutely can be. The Surprise Gift Blog article really captures that vulnerability, highlighting the often palpitating feeling that comes with confessing such deep emotions.
Mhm.
And it makes a crucial point that a confession is fundamentally about expressing your feelings, not necessarily about demanding or expecting a specific response.
That's such an important perspective. It takes some pressure off, maybe.
Exactly. It's about putting your own truth out there. The article also touches on the different ways people choose to do this, right?
Yeah, it
It
does.
discusses the traditional approach, confessing in person, emphasizing the power of face-to-face,
Hmm.
but it also acknowledges modern reality. Lots of people now express these feelings online.
Right, like through DMs or texts.
Exactly. Or even creatively through virtual gifts.
Hmm.
The article suggests that while maybe not ideal for everyone, a thoughtfully crafted digital confession can still be deeply meaningful.
And it even specifically mentioned using virtual gifts from gift.me as a unique way to do it. I noticed some examples of confession texts and letters in the article. What were some of the common themes there?
Well, many centered around expressing a profound desire to share life's journey together, very openly offering one's heart
Hmm.
and acknowledging the significant positive impact the other person has had.
Mm.
There were really heartfelt lines like, my heart is completely yours. Would you be willing to accept it?
Wow.
And truly, you've become one of the most wonderful things that have ever happened in my life. So quite direct and full of genuine emotion.
Yeah, very straightforward, coming right from the heart. The article also delves into the idea of poetic love confessions. That sounds incredibly romantic.
It does indeed. The Surprise Gift blog stresses the importance of authenticity and simplicity when you're crafting a poetic confession, along with using metaphors effectively, like comparing your love to the vastness of the sea. They even provided some lovely short examples of poems expressing affection for a friend, focusing on shared experiences and personal feelings.
That's a beautiful, maybe less intimidating way to express such a deep emotion. Now, the article also addressed some common questions people have about making a love confession. What were some key insights there?
Well, it clarified that basically, a love confession is expressing romantic feelings for the very first time.
Right, the initial declaration.
Exactly. As for what to say, the advice was, prioritize honesty and simplicity. Be clear, direct, no ambiguity.
Got it.
The elements of a good confession: sincerity, directness, respecting the other person's potential reaction, and crucially, timing.
Timing is everything.
Pretty much.
Drop.
And for confessing true love, the advice is simple. Do it honestly and only when you truly feel ready.
And for those who opt to confess via text, any specific tips?
Yeah, the article advises keeping that same sincerity and directness you'd use face-to-face. Personalize it, maybe include an inside joke or reference a shared memory
Oh, nice touch.
to make it feel more authentic.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, mentally prepare yourself for any kind of response.
Good advice. It's fascinating that the Surprise Gift blog also introduced the concept of AI assistance for this, specifically mentioning this Olivia from gift.me.
Yes, they presented it as a potentially helpful tool for those who struggle to find the right words.
How does that work?
Well, the idea is you fill out a form detailing your feelings, and the AI generates a personalized message. They shared a few examples of these AI confessions, which expressed quite deep feelings and hopes for a deeper connection.
Wow.
It's certainly a sign of the times, isn't it?
Right.
How technology is intersecting with romance.
It really is. Okay, so we've explored expressing love through idioms and direct confessions. Now, relationships themselves have their ups and downs. Are there specific English phrasal verbs we use to describe these different stages and dynamics?
Absolutely. Espresso English provides a really practical lesson focused entirely on phrasal verbs used in romantic relationships.
Okay.
And they cleverly use a dialogue between two friends, Emily and Sarah, to illustrate how these verbs pop up in everyday conversation.
Oh, using a dialogue is such a great way to see them in action. Let's start with the initial stages like attraction. What phrasal verbs might we hear?
Well, if someone's showing romantic or sexual interest, Emily explains they might be hitting on you.
Okay, flirting.
Exactly, very common way to say flirting. If the interest is mutual, one person might then ask someone out, invite them on a date.
Right.
However, if you realize someone's interested, but you don't feel the same, Sarah mentions the importance of not wanting to lead someone on.
Ah, yeah. Don't give false hope.
Precisely, making them believe there's a chance when you know there isn't.
That's such a delicate situation. What happens if there is a real connection, a mutual spark right away?
Then you might say you hit it off with someone, meaning you experience a great connection, great rapport right from the first meeting.
Nice.
And as those feelings deepen, Emily talks about starting to fall for someone, which, as we all know, means starting to fall in love.
So we go from hitting on to maybe hitting it off and then falling for them. Clear progression.
Mm-hmm.
But relationships, as we know, don't always last.
Yeah.
What phrasal verbs describe the ending?
The dialogue uses both split up and break up to mean the relationship ended.
Okay, common ones.
Yeah. Emily also shares that she and a previous boyfriend drifted apart. That describes a more gradual process.
Right, not necessarily a big fight.
Exactly. People slowly become less close, different interests, different goals, maybe just lack of connection. It suggests a less dramatic end.
That sounds gentler, but sometimes, unfortunately, the end is more tumultuous, right?
Sadly, yes.
Mm.
Sarah recounts a past relationship where she first hooked up with someone at a party.
Which means,
It's slang for having a sexual encounter, often casual. But their relationship had frequent arguments, followed by making up, reconciling after the fights.
ugh, sounds exhausting.
Yeah, she even expresses disbelief at how long she put up with him.
Meaning tolerated him.
Right, tolerated someone despite their difficult behavior.
So what finally ended it?
Her boyfriend cheated on her,
Oh.
meaning he was unfaithful. She actually caught him making out with his ex,
Yikes. Making out means.
kissing very passionately. And even though he wanted another chance, she felt he was just trying to jerk her around, manipulate her, deceive her, so she ended it.
Good for her. Now, what about just being in an established relationship or maybe not actively seeking one?
Well, go out with someone can mean the early stages of dating, but also being in a longer-term committed relationship.
Okay.
And Emily mentioned she's currently not interested in settling down yet. In this context, that means entering a long-term, stable relationship, often implying marriage, family, that sort of thing.
That dialogue really paints a vivid picture.
Okay, moving beyond idioms and phrasal verbs, what about specific romantic words and phrases? Your dictionary provides a really comprehensive list here. Lots of romantic words to describe someone you love, like adorable, amazing, angel, beloved.
Lovely words.
And they offer romantic action words as alternatives to just saying love, like adore, cherish, admire. Each has a slightly different nuance.
It's so useful to have those different shades of meaning. What about synonyms for romance itself?
The list includes evocative words like adoration, amorous, ardent, passionate, again, offering different intensities and flavors of romantic feeling.
And of course, we can't forget those endearing romantic nicknames.
Exactly. Your dictionary has a great collection classics like babe, darling, sweetheart, to more playful ones like snuggle bunny and pumpkin.
So many delightful options. What about saying I love you in other languages? That's always thoughtful.
Yeah, the article conveniently provides translations for several. French, je t'aime or je t'adore. Greek, sagapo. Italian, ti amo. Hawaiian, aloha, ohio.
Yeah.
Russian, ya люблю тебя.
Huh.
And Spanish, te amo or te quiero.
That's a handy little cheat sheet. Were there any particularly memorable romantic sayings or quotes highlighted?
Yes, the timeless wisdom from Aristotle. Love is composed of a single soul inhabiting two bodies.
Beautiful.
And Tennyson's line, if I had a flower for every time I thought of you, I could walk in my garden forever.
Love.
Plus more general sentiments like, you truly hold the key to my heart.
All so enduring. The article also mentioned key vocabulary for Valentine's Day, didn't it?
Indeed. Words like affection, admire, crush, date, heartfelt, and soulmate, especially prominent then. They also emphasized essential romantic words like adore, cherish, passion, blush, soulmate, and gave practical examples of using them in sentences.
Really practical. What about phrases that are a bit more flirty?
Your dictionary shares some charming lines like, you're honestly the best thing that's ever happened to me, and the poetic, your eyes are like stars, plus some more playful, lighthearted lines designed to charm.
Nice. I also noticed a mention of cultural love idioms. We touched on some earlier, but were there any others highlighted here?
Beyond the ones we already discussed, like two peas in a pod, love at first sight, and head over heels, which came up in multiple sources. This section didn't introduce significant new ones.
Okay, and I recall seeing a reference to a specific podcast episode focusing on romantic English phrases. What were some key words they emphasized?
Yes, the Let's Learn English topic, love podcast. They specifically drew attention to phrases like have a crush on, ask someone out, go on a date, adore, and the British English term fancy.
Right, fancy. It really underscores just how expansive the language of love is. Now, let's shift focus slightly. One source, a Seneco, talks about using role-playing in language teaching. How can this apply to learning romantic English?
It's an incredibly effective method. Seneca defines role-playing as taking on specific roles in a scenario to simulate real-life interactions.
Okay.
And they highlight several key advantages for language learners in general.
Such as?
Firstly, it improves speaking fluency through active practice. Secondly, contextual learning, you apply vocabulary and grammar in realistic situations.
That sense.
Thirdly, it offers valuable chances for constructive feedback in a supportive setting. And finally, it can boost motivation by making learning more engaging and interactive. Fun, even.
Those all sound like huge benefits. Any potential drawbacks?
Yes, Sanako mentioned some. Anxiety or shyness can be an issue for some students. There's a risk of unequal participation, scenarios might feel artificial, and assessment can be tricky.
Okay.
But Sanako also gives tips to minimize these. Use small groups. Provide clear guidelines and objectives, including specific vocabularies.
Right.
Encourage authenticity, and debrief with feedback afterwards.
So how can we specifically use role-playing for romantic English?
Well, Sanako suggests selecting relevant scenarios, and romance offers tons. You could role-play asking someone out using those flirty phrases we discussed,
Okay.
or confessing your feelings, practicing different levels of directness and vocabulary. You could even role-play navigating minor disagreement, using those phrasal verbs, or just having a romantic chat, expressing affection with descriptive words.
That makes perfect sense, like acting out little real-life moments in a safe space to practice the language. Now, we also had a brief mention of music and sound effects in podcasts. How might that relate here?
Well, the article on using music effectively emphasizes how it defines a podcast's tone and enhances the listener's experience.
Right.
Which is quite similar, actually, to how our choice of language and tone dramatically impacts how we express romantic feelings, adding layers of depth, emotion, nuance.
That's a really insightful parallel. And finally, we had that example of the English Learning Podcast conversation, touching on a chance meeting and apologizing.
Yes, that YouTube transcript showed a practical dialogue two people meet unexpectedly, hint of a potential connection. It included vocabulary like knockover, language takeaways on words like familiar, coincidence, and a fluency builder on apologizing. It just illustrated how these different elements come together in natural conversation.
It really reinforces seeing and hearing these expressions used in context, doesn't it?
Well, we have certainly taken a thorough deep dive into the language of love in English today.
We have indeed. We've explored the sheer variety of love idioms, looked at confessing feelings, navigated relationship phrasal verbs, uncovered romantic vocabulary, and even considered role-playing as a learning tool.
And ultimately, mastering these expressions can really empower you to not only understand romantic nuances better, but also to express your own feelings more effectively, more naturally.
Absolutely. So maybe take a moment to consider which of these idioms or phrases resonated most with you. Think about how you might find chances to use them.
And here's a final thought for you to ponder. Given the sheer number and the wonderful nuance of ways to express love in English, what do you think that tells us about the cultural significance and complexity of romantic relationships in the English-speaking world? Something to consider as you continue to explore these expressions.